and welcome to part 2 of German in Die Hard. In case you missed part 1, there will be a link in the description, check that one out first. If not, here goes, have fun, this is part 2. A minute later and 2 floors further down, Karl remembers that he's supposed to be a German and invokes his most glaring accent yet.
So.
When Karl then is about to find McClane in the air ducts, McClane then gets a last-second rescue by Fritz as he shouts,
Karl, komm, die Polizei! Mach los, Karl, die Polizei!
So, Fritz's line is perfect, absolutely natural, but Franco's line, oh, now it starts. This is the first of many instances in this movie. Whenever the terrorists need to hurry, they always shout, Mach los, mach los! And that's just utter nonsense. It sounds very German, if you don't speak German, but it isn't at all. It's the equivalent of saying, make go in English. And to illustrate this nonsense, I'll always translate it as make go for the rest of this video. And they had so many short and nice options, right? They could have said, mach schon, los, schnell, mach hin, sieh zu, Beeilung, beeil dich, and 100 others. And these would have all been better than creating your own mach los. In fact, mach los only has a meaning in the sense of untying something, you know, like untying a boat, for example. I will send this here with a big one, even though Fritz's line was great, but I'll use the big one and hope we can skip some of the mach los we'll encounter later. They run and check on the police.
Wie viele sind es?
Nur ein Mann.
Alex hat einen nervösen Zeigefinger.
Fritz again is natural. Alexander, not so much. Firstly, he has a noticeable accent. Secondly, no real German would say nur ein Mann, just one man. That's a direct translation from English. We would rather say nur einer, just one. Vigo, the Carpathian on the roof, then discovers McClane, and we get a little banter between James and Heinrich and Marco.
Wo ist er? Marco, er stand 34! Geh, schnell! 34! Mach schon! Da kann er schon.
And while we have a native German speaker here, the sentence once again is a literal translation from English. Namely, he's saying am 34, at 34. That's not how we talk about floors in German. He should have said im 34. On the 34th. In the following shootout, the subtitles are trying to fool us. They claim Marco is shouting in German when he is actually shouting in Italian. At least I think it's Italian. Correct me in the comments if I got that one wrong. The movie rolls on and the police roll in with an armored vehicle. We get 2 guys hauling rockets.
Mach los, beweg dich an!
Wart doch mal, du bleibst
Du Vollidiot! Willst du uns alle in die Luft jagen?
That's right. The return of Mach los, and they use the same audio line twice. Same intonation and everything. Copy, paste. They hurry with the rockets. We get dialogue between Alexander and James.
Schnell! Mach schnell!
Ah, Scheiße! Lass liegen! Weiter! Mach schnell!
Oh,
Mach schnell! Weiter! Halt hier! Mach los!
There seems to be a real on-set audio mixed with lines edited post. You can hear the different intonations. I've color highlighted this for you here. The on-set stuff is fine. Great, actually. It's the additions that don't fit. One guy is shouting faster and the other guy is saying slowly. You can't have it both ways, guys.
Mach schnell! Oh, mach schnell! Weiter!
And then in the scene, Alexander yells Mach schnell, which is correct version, before they add more Mach los on top of it. So it was a great scene and then somehow they butchered it in post. The tank rolls in closer.
Da, I see him! Feuer!
Notice the sudden switch to English for the audience's convenience?
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
Like, why? Why would a real person do that? I would have given you a plus. The scene continues with Hans speaking English to his men. And after blowing up the same window twice, yep, that's a thing that happens, they reuse the shot of the first rocket for the second rocket as well. So after that, Alexander suddenly gets two different voices, weird lips, and the more prominent accent. Almost as if he was overdubbed.
Und das andere, schnell hier, mach los! Mach schnell, mach los!
Later we see a news report about Hans, describing him as a member of the West German Volksfrei movement. Don't forget, back in the day, there were two Germanys. That's right. So this movement, of course, is fictional. What does Volksfrei mean? Literally, people free, as in not belonging to a people or free of being bound to a people definition. Just by the name, I would put that in the left-wing spectrum. What I find funny though is the inclusion of West German when in Die Hard 3, later Hans's brother is revealed as being part of East German Special Forces or something. Anyway, sounds like a legit name that could exist. This next throwaway line from Alice I won't pay any attention to other than the typo in the subtitles where Z should be capitalized. Finally, John and Hans meet and Hans reveals himself by speaking German.
33. Stockwerk. Kommt. Sofort.
The translation is on point and the accent is passable except for the pronunciation of 33, 33. I'll give it a win. And then comes the big shootout with the most famous German line in this movie, or rather the most infamous, because after his excellent scene before, Hans now becomes completely illiterate when it comes to his German. First, Hans shouts something that doesn't sound natural, makes no sense whatsoever in context.
Haltet mich!
Shouts, haltet mich, hold me in plural. And then comes the line of lines of how not to do foreign languages in a movie.
Karl, schieß dem Fenster. Shoot the glass.
Now, why is this so bad, like so bad? Because out of those three little words, all three are wrong. We'll start at the end and move forward. Or backward rather, I guess. Fenster, meaning window, still works okay-ish. Like, if this was the only thing wrong with this scene, I wouldn't mind it at all. However, window is not a translation for glass. That's the literal aspect. And as for the sensical aspect, it's not about the window, as in the thing that you can look through and open and close. It's about the glass component of the window, the pane. And that should be Scheibe in German, because a window is more than a glass pane. Secondly, the article dem is in the wrong case. If you know German, you know our cases are mostly reflected in the articles, which is why they are so often such a pain to learn. The case applied here is dative, whereas the correct case would have been accusative. Not whom do you shoot, but who do you shoot, or what, I guess, in the case of window. But and since Fenster is neuter, das Fenster, in accusative, we would have das, not dem. And if we did take Scheibe, as I suggested, then it would have been also not have been dem, but die. And lastly, our verb, schießen, to shoot. Now, while English shoot and German schießen are linguistically related, they do work differently. German always requires a little bit more precision. For example, in I shot the sheriff, we can't really know if the sheriff is actually dead or not, just by hearing the word shot. In German, this would always be clear. Ich habe auf den Sheriff geschossen. I shot at the sheriff. Ich habe den Sheriff angeschossen. I hit or glanced the sheriff with my shot. Ich habe den Sheriff erschossen. I shot the sheriff dead. These little fragments make all the difference and are inherent and important of how the language functions. But back to our window. So what should Hans have said? Schieß auf das Fenster. Or better, schieß auf die Scheibe. Or even zerschieß die Scheibe. Zer is always a great fragment for breaking things. Let us focus on the secondary oddity in this scene. Hey Carl! I'm telling you what to do in our common mother tongue! Oh wait, what? You don't understand me? Well, then let me tell you the same thing in a foreign language.
English, motherfucker, do you speak it?
Hello! In what world does that make sense? Maybe Carl just looked so puzzled because the grammar was so bad. After the big action set piece, things calm down a bit. We hear John's wife argue with Hans. The subtitles try to fool us again. He's not in fact speaking German, he's speaking French to his French henchman Christoph. Well, I'm not here to evaluate French, but I will fault the subtitles for wasting my time trying to figure out what the hell he was supposed to say there. Yeah. And then McClane walks out in front of them and throws down his gun. Hans has another brilliantly bad line.
Nein, dieses mein.
He's talking to Eddie, who so far has clearly been an American character. No accent, no German, nothing from him. Why this Denglish mix? And why this is mine and not he is mine? I don't know. It could also be that the subtitles are wrong once again and he's speaking German in fact. Nein, dies ist mein. German and English are really close here. But either way, it's odd and unnatural and we'll deduct a point for that. Well, and then Hans falls out the window and McClane lives happily ever after and never ever in his life has to ever deal with Germans again. Let's tally up the score. There you have it. I love this movie to death, but as a German speaker, the original version is almost unwatchable. I can't take any of these terrorists seriously. They might as well be wearing clowns' costumes, honestly. Alright! Tell me in the comments what you think of this kind of analysis. Did I catch every detail in the movie? Have you learned something new? If you want others to find this video, please tell the YouTube algorithm by leaving a like or share it on your platform of choice. And if you want me to make more of these videos, the best way to let me know is by subscribing to the channel. Have a wonderful day and auf Wiedersehen in the next one.